Hey, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and in this video I'm reviewing the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 1LE. So listen up, last year I was very fortunate to drive the Camaro SS 1LE and the Shelby GT 500 with the track package. Now both of those cars are track-oriented versions of the base Mustang and Camaro, but now I've got this, the big boy in the Camaro lineup, and man am I excited. So let's see how this thing stacks up in this review of the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1 1LE. Alright, so I'm going to start the review off by talking about the suspension and cover some of the other things that make the 1LE package extremely special. Now, first things first, this has dynamic suspension spool valve dampers from Multimatic DSSV, and this stuff is really kept for F1 racing and very special cars. The Ford GT has it, the Aston Martin 177 I believe has it as well. But what this means is you get a nice amount of adjustability, so you can raise and lower the front ride height by 10 millimeters. You have adjustable anti-rear roll bars, you have adjustable camber plates. Now, how does this translate to the real world for the non-track driving owner of a 1LE pack? It's actually 3 times stiffer than a regular ZL1. And I'll demonstrate that during the driving portion of the review, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, the flip side of that, for somebody who wants to buy this as a track machine, this thing is really flat, corners very, very nicely, and is a ultimate track weapon. Alright, so it doesn't just stop at the suspension. You've got really special wheels, tires, and brakes. Starting off with those wheels, these are forged aluminum, and they're 3.3 pounds lighter than what you get in the base ZL1. They're also smaller in diameter. They're 19 inches compared to the 20 inches found in the regular ZL1, but they're wider. They're 11 inches up front and 12 inches in the rear, so a significantly wide wheel to give you that grip that you're looking for and the extra tire patch that you get. Speaking of the tires, these come with Eagle F1 R3 tires. Now, the owner has swapped them out for Nitto tires, so 305 up front, 325 in the rear, so nice meaty tires as well. Inside the wheel barrel, you have significant braking power, both in feel and as far as the specs of the brakes. So you've got almost 15.5-inch brake rotors up front being bitten onto by a 6-piston 1LE painted red brake caliper. And then in the rear, red brake caliper, again, 4 pistons back there with a 14.2-inch rotor. So significant suspension, braking, tire performance here in the 1LE package. It's part of what makes it special. Now, 2 interesting things about the front end of the 1LE. You get these extra dive planes for aerodynamic downforce, pushing the car down from the front end. And secondly, this is an observation from my standpoint and more of a design aspect. You can see that the 1LE has a lot of intakes, a lot of openings. The mouth is very wide. You've got openings on the side banks. And the observation I made is this car has more openings up front than bodywork. You see less blue in the front bumper than you see with the black openings. So it's just something interesting that I noticed. Now, before going any further, I wanted to stop and make a small prediction here about this car. And the reason I want to do that is because I feel like this thing is somewhat forgotten. People don't talk about the ZL1 1LE much. They usually think GT500 track package, Hellcat, whatnot. And I think that's quite a shame, because this thing is very special and it's going to be extremely sought after in 5, probably 10 years from now. And there's 3 reasons for that. Number 1, which kind of applies to all cars in this genre or in this segment, and that is that EV cars are becoming so much more prevalent, and the advancement of them coming to market is accelerating at a pace that I didn't imagine or anticipate. And then you've got the looks and the mechanical pieces that are on this 1LE package. Starting off with those DSSV shocks, and then the wheels, and then that humongous wing you can see back there, and the dive canards. This thing is loaded with special mechanical things. And then just the overall look. When EV cars are starting to look like this, and all focused on aerodynamics and coefficient drag and trying to be slippery, you lose some of these cool, aggressive looking designs that you get in muscle cars or pony cars like the Camaro and the Mustang. And finally, you've got the car's character, or somewhat of a stigma that the Camaro carries on its shoulder, and it's this visibility. It gives it that specific character or that weirdness that other cars don't have. And when you look at cars that are special from the past, they've got an element of weirdness or uniqueness. And I think the Camaro qualifies with that visibility fact, and maybe some of the negative public perception that it has as well. So for these reasons, I think this car is going to be extremely special and sought after in the future. Now, another element of specialness about the Camaro, specifically this ZL1, is that you can still get it with a 6-speed manual. Chevrolet offers the 6-speed and a 10-speed automatic. Now, you can imagine, even in today's day and age with cars, manual transmissions are pretty much extinct. Can you imagine in EVs with the 1-speed transmissions? Driving a manual or roaring your own gears is basically going to be fossil fuel-like. Now, this engine, it's a LT4 familiar engine from the Z06, 650 horsepower, 650 pounds-feet of torque, of course rear-wheel drive driven, and the performance numbers 3.5 seconds 0 to 60, and track time Nürburgring 7 minutes 16 seconds, which is unbelievably fast, because anything close to 6 minutes is just ludicrous. And of course, this is a track-oriented car, so it levels up with the expectation. Now, enough of that. Let's go around back. I'll let you listen to what the exhaust sounds like. Now, keep in mind, this car does have a modified Borla exhaust, so you're not gonna get the stock performance sound, but it sounds absolutely killer with the modified exhaust. All right, so now we made it to the rear end, and one of my favorite design elements about the 1LE pack is most apparent from back here, and that is the way the wheels and tires stick out from the fender arches. Now, some people kind of think this looks quirky and kind of out of shape, but I personally think it gives it an aggressive look with a mean stance, and I think it looks totally gnarly. Now, as far as the highlight back here, it's definitely this wing. It's carbon fiber, it's fixed, it was co-developed by Pratt & Miller. It generates 300 pounds of downforce at 150 miles an hour, and you might think that's a high top speed, but on tracks with long straightaways with 650 horsepower, you're definitely going to hit that 150 mile per hour mark. Now, the tail lights, these I actually like the pre-refresh better, the slimmer, narrower Camaro taillight compared to these, but these are unique and they're clear and they look somewhat cool. Now, as far as the trunk goes, and this is for people out there who might consider daily driving this car or generally any Camaro, and that is the opening of the trunk. So the way you open the trunk is with a button here. There's also a button on the key, but the opening of the trunk itself is rather weirdly cut, weirdly shaped. It actually prevents the Camaro from getting larger things in here, because once you get them in there, there's a lot of maneuverability and a lot of space inside the trunk. Now, this may not be a big deal because this is a track-oriented car and people probably not going to be daily driving it, but just an observation. Now let me take you onto the interior and show you what it's like in there. All right, so now the interior of the ZL1 1LE, and I'm going to address the visibility concerns. Some people are very apprehensive about the Camaro specifically for this. I personally don't have any issues. Seeing out the front, seeing out the rear, yes, the windows are short. Yes, the windshield is short. Yes, you do feel like you're sitting in the car. But I think that suits the nature of the Camaro as a sports car better than the opposing side, which is commonly referred to as, I don't feel like I'm sitting in the car. Some sports cars do have that feeling, and I have no issues with the visibility or the seating position, or feel like I'm crunched up in here. I've got plenty of headroom. Now, the rest of the interior, it is starting to show its age, and that's to be expected because this thing was designed 10 years ago, but there are some surprising elements in here. So the unsurprising element, the quality, there are a lot of plastics in here, but you do have Alcantara on the steering wheel, you have Alcantara on the seat, which is rather aggressively bolstered. It's fixed bolstering. But it is comfortable at the same time. That's one of the nice things about the Camaro seat, is that it is comfortable and usable on a daily basis. This is the same one that you get in the regular ZL1. Now, the rest of the stuff, there is a carbon fiber piece in here, but again, overall, it is starting to feel somewhat dated in here. Now, the flip side of that is there are some surprising features in here, things that you don't really even see in some luxury cars. Now, starting off with blind spot monitoring. So for people who are concerned about the visibility, you get blind spot monitoring in here. I didn't see that in some of the other cars in this segment. Then, you have heated and cooled seats. Talk about a luxury feature in your 650 horsepower car. And to add on top of that, a heated steering wheel. You're sitting in here in your 650 horsepower track monster, and your hands are nice and cozy on your Alcantara heated steering wheel. So this is that element of, yes, it's old, but it does have good functionality that is surprising and unexpected. Now, the one thing that's really annoying about the interior, and this is the last point, is the way the infotainment system is mounted, and I can't get over it. I saw it in the SS1LE, and seeing it here again, it's just, I wish they just didn't do it. It doesn't even serve its purpose properly, which is to divert away the glare from the sunlight during the day, and even then, because of the way it's angled, it's kind of difficult to see, and it's so weird to look at. But anyway, it is what it is. That's the way they designed it. It is what it is. So now, let's go to the driving portion of the review and talk about what this thing is really all about, the driving experience. All right, so now the driving portion of the ZL1 review. And with visibility out the front over my shoulders, I don't have any issues, especially because I have the blind spot monitoring as well. Out the back, because of this massive wing, there is some obstruction, but if you adjust your mirror properly, no issues seeing out the back either. The base price of the ZL1, remember the 1LE package is just a package. It's not like a separate model in and of itself, so it's an add-on to the ZL1. The ZL1 is $65,000 with this 10-speed auto. The 1LE pack is a $7,500 option, and then there are other knickknacks that could raise the price between $75,000 and $80,000, but you're pretty much looking about $75,000 to $85,000 depending on what options you want, what state you live in, taxes, fees, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. And as far as the market goes with COVID, it's totally unpredictable. Some dealers are willing to move them at a decent price, some of them not. So it all depends on where you live and the dealership. So now let's turn this thing on and let's go for a drive. Foot on the brake, start, stop. The Borla exhaust sounds really good. Now I've heard the ZL1 in its base form, and that already sounds good. And this just takes it to another level. It's very throaty and very aggressive. So let's go. Parking brake. Release. All right. Let's see if how's the traffic today. Manual mode, sport. The way the exhaust sounds in the car and the engine, the speed is remarkable. I remember driving the ZL6, and for some reason I don't remember it being this fast. Maybe it's the weight in this car. Oh, wow. The speed is truly remarkable. And even given the weight, very, very fast car. Woo, baby. Wow, wow, wow. The balance. Oh my goodness. This is a special car. Woo, baby. I'm telling you right now, this thing is... The level of performance this car has is truly remarkable and untouchable on the street. You just can't, and I won't do the unresponsible thing of trying to do so, but I'll let me walk you through. So the engine is crazy, and with the Borla exhaust, I'm willing to forgive that this doesn't have the manual. I wish it did, but the supercharger whine comes through. The Borla exhaust, it just sounds really, really good. It makes the driving experience very, very pleasurable. Now, the engine's already fast. I think most people knew that. Not only is it fast in a straight line, but it is also fast in twists because of this remarkable suspension. And let me display to you some of the straight line speed here. Should be able to get a straight. Oh, red light. You come out of these mountains, these random red lights out of nowhere. But there shouldn't be anybody in front of me. I need to catch my breath here for a second because this is a very, very fast car. Green light, let's go. Hit the limiter. Ooh, wow. Unbelievable how fast this car is. All right. Oh. And it just pulls with the trans, the 10-speed trans. The way this, oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, you see how, you see me jumping like that? Those are those spool valves. I haven't gotten to that part yet, but they really hold you down in place. All right, so the engine is good, super fast. The transmission, I do feel like 10 gears is way too much. It is fun to go through the gears, and literally every time you change a gear, either up or down, the RPM goes in the same direction, in the respective direction, about 500 RPM. But I feel like it's a little too excessive. I don't know, the only complaint I have about it is that when you're downshifting, you've got to click, 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 click until you get to the right one. But otherwise, it's very good on upshifts and on downshifts. It's a very snappy transmission for being an automatic and not a dual clutch. Now, steering. The steering in all the modes, regrettably, it's a lot of dust on the road, regrettably is somewhat numb. There isn't a lot of feedback coming through. It feels the same no matter what mode I'm in. The only difference I get is the weighting goes a little bit more weighted in sport and track mode, but otherwise the steering feels a little numb. Now, the suspension and these spool valves. Man, it is definitely true what they say about these spool valves and how punishing they are on uneven pavement. When you're on even pavement, they're absolutely amazing, and they do things that are remarkable. But you saw there earlier where I hit an uneven pavement and the car went up. It's almost like there's no rebound or suspension travel. It's just like stuck in place, and I just leaped up out of my seat. And I could say it's very similar as far as the uncomfortableness, for the lack of a better term. When you're driving on the street and you're on uneven pavement, it gets old pretty fast. Is it bearable? It depends on what type of driver you are. But if you're somebody who is looking for a somewhat comfortable ride, cushiony ride, you are going to get disappointed, as you can see there, because this is a very, very stiff and borderline uncomfortable suspension on uneven pavements. It literally makes you feel everything. Everything is felt. Now, that's pretty much all I got to say. Let me just pull over here and give you my overall thoughts on the ZL1. Unbelievably fast. Suspension is truly, truly remarkable. Steering is a little numb, surprisingly. I thought I was going to get a little bit more feedback. The brakes, which I didn't cover when I was driving, are extremely good. Extremely, extremely good. A lot of bite right at the top of the pedal. Very firm. Great feedback in the pedal. Great brake. Daily drivability. If you're willing to put up with a stiff suspension and you're okay with uneven pavements, or if your city you live in that has decent roads, you could make it work. But otherwise, you're gonna have a tough time because it is a very stiff suspension on a day-to-day basis. So those are pretty much my thoughts. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram at DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.